and why we are not uniting. And that is based on some research, that what are the factors or reasons why Muslim Ummah is having difficulty. And then we will briefly discuss what are the factors which facilitate the Muslim solidarity. The question is very important. Is it all slogans? Is it all emotional thing? Everybody is saying for last 200 years the Muslim Ummah need to unite. So I think the doubts are coming in the minds of the people now. What's happening? Is it really we can unite? Was that Ottoman Empire? Was it a reality or a dream? So Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says in Qur'an in many places where the unity of the Muslim Ummah is recommended. It's commanded by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And at other times, in other places, Allah has warned us that if you do not unite to Muslims, then it will be a problem. For example, in Surah Anfal, verse 73, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala warns us. First, He gives the explanation. Scenario. What is a scenario? وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. Allah says all those people who do reject Islam and the Prophet Muhammad, so they are protectors of each other. They are the friends of each other. They are the awliya of each other. إِلَّا تَفْعَلُوا. If you do not become the protectors of each other, then listen to the warning of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Allah says, تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ كَبِيرٌ. It will become a great trial and tribulation on the planet Earth, and there will be a great mischief and or a malicious disorder, all at a large scale. So we have this clear instructions from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala that you need to unite. In other places in Surah Hujurat, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says, this is something which you already know, but this is the building up of the talk. That innamal mu'minuna ikhwa, that you have the foundation to unite and show this Muslim solidarity on what basis? On ikhwa. What is ikhwa? The brotherhood. So what is the foundation of this brotherhood? Only one thing. It is your iman and your faith. So technically, what is the concluding part of the talk? I can tell in the beginning, but we will end at the same point. It doesn't mean you can go now. It is actually just two things. The brotherhood, only if you believe in it, it is based on your faith or iman. That's it, there's two things. These are fundamental things why we should unite. We, briefly, people who come from Pakistani background, they must have seen a temporary solidarity when the Indian aeroplanes attacked and all this, drama was happening about 6 to 8 weeks ago. And we saw for the first time an amazing thing. The media, the army, the ruling party, and the opposition party, they were all on the same page. And to me, it appeared like a dream. But that was a temporary, fake, very artificial type of solidarity. But actually, it gave us such a good feeling. All of us felt so good. And if any one of you did not feel good, then perhaps you had some other things on your mind. There's no blame on you. So Allah commands in the Qur'an, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. This is another Surah Al Imran. And Allah gave example of previous two tribes, Aus and Khazraj, that they were fighting with each other, and Allah babayna qulubikum, and Allah joined their hearts. So remember, so far only three things. I'm not asking much to remember. One is brotherhood, second is iman, and third thing is a divine intervention. That is Allah babayna qulubikum. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala can unite the hearts of the people, but there are conditions attached. It is just like if somebody got a disease or illness or sickness, and one can only become or cured from that sickness is that you follow the instructions of a doctor, take medicine, have some investigations, and complete your course. If you refuse to do that, nothing will happen, and there will be more complications of the underlying illness or disease. So in this famous verse, وَأَعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا, you hold on to the rope of Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is Qur'an, Prophet Muhammad, and all the Sunnah and all the Islam. Very simple as that. And وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. When Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala says وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, it is a command, it is a hukm, it is absolutely obligatory, like your salah, that do not form sects. Simple as that. This is the proper terminology. وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, do not have any faraq. Faraq is the same Arabic word, but same in Urdu also. So there should be no faraq between this Muslim and that Muslim. A rich Muslim and a poor Muslim. A Punjabi Muslim and a Sindhi Muslim. A Balochi Muslim and a Bradfordian Muslim. And a Birmingham Muslim and Manchesterian Muslim. A New Yorkian, there should be no difference. That's what it means. Another place Allah says that if you divide into sects, تَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ, your power will go away. And the power, imagine it's a form of an inflated balloon, you will be deflated. And how the balloon can be deflated? Simply by puncturing it. So you will be puncturing your power and authority and dignity and honor, and other people will simply come onto you and attack you as they sort of invade and attack, according to one hadith, food. So, now, what are the objectives of solidarity? Let's part one complete that. Why we should unite? Why? Why Allah is saying all this? Why people on the mimbar? Why all the scholars and all of the people of the knowledge, students of the knowledge, and the activists and all of the people, why they are saying to unite? What is the reason? What are the objectives? There must be some maqasid. The first maqsad or the objective of Muslim solidarity, why it is essential, not important. Anybody says important, say no, I don't agree with you. It is essential. It is to, number one objective is to show your obedience to Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when Allah said, وَأَعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, Allah is ordering you. The second objective is very important. Not the first one is not important. Uniting together is self-preservation. By self-preservation mean that people will not come and create mischief. They will not divide and rule, and they will not allow the hypocrites within the community and society and to become traitors and conspire with other people who want to see your downfall. Self-preservation is the nature of the human being. It is the fitrah of the human being that if you are hungry, you eat. You're preserving yourself. If you don't have clothes, you want to wear the clothes because you don't want to look shameless. If somebody is harming and hurting and abusing you, you want to protect your honor and you defend yourself. So self-preservation is extremely, extremely important. So why do we need to unite all over the world, the Muslims now? Because you want to self-preserve. Otherwise this wave of Islamophobia and other kind of hatred and discrimination and this bigotry will actually cause a lot more damage than what already it is causing a damage. Not just the physical damage or the damage of the life, but also emotional damage, psychological damage. The third thing why you should unite is, it is actually the strengthening of the morale of the ummah. So our morale is important. Our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, if you look at the seerah and really focus on all his interaction with people, whether it was a Muslim or a non-Muslim, whether it's a good Muslim or a bad Muslim, whether it's an older person or a younger person, whether it's a beautiful person or an ugly person, rich or a poor, one thing was amazing with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He always used to speak in such a way, in such a tone, in such a words that he will raise the morale of a person. And when people believe the Prophet Muhammad sallam, they will be satisfied, they will be smiling, they will feel good about meeting him. And if somebody meets the Muslims of today, they will feel more sad probably, because we are hypercritical these days. We criticize too much. And the fourth objective of or solidarity is actually political stability. But the fifth one, you will be surprised. I am certain that is the objective. You must have heard the word Tazkiyyah. It's purification. So we forget about that, and we, in our mind, we have a fantastic, some esoteric, some metaphysical, some, less than 0.001% people understand that special kind of tazkiyyah, going into seclusion and doing those things. That is not recommendation of the Qur'an. The tazkiyyah is the objective. If you unite, you are actually purifying yourself. How? If you look at the Qur'an and really go home and do some research and accept my challenge, then Tazkiyyah, the purification, falls into four things. It is the Tathhirul Badan, that is the purification of your physical body. And the second thing is, it is purification of your moral character, akhlaq. And the third thing, it is the purification of your halal and tayyiban, your food, whatever you eat. So you're purifying yourself. And the last one is the purification means you purify the knowledge of what you seek. If our food is corrupted, our akhlaq or moral character is corrupted, if our knowledge is corrupted, and if our body is not clean, we have no purification. In reality, when we unite as a Muslims and accept each other and leave our prejudice and sectarianism and bigotry and our internal racism, I'm sorry to say, that is the true word for that. We have internal racism. So, one of the objectives of unity is that we purify ourselves. We can only purify ourselves if we give the rights of Allah and the rights of the people. That's the 5 objectives of the solidarity. Now, why we are not uniting quickly? What are the, this is very academic and you may find boring, but quickly, what are the reasons why we are not uniting? Why? What is the top answer for that? Shahid sir? Top answer?
Egoism.
It is not the top answer, but it is included.
Because we're all independent. Because we all
Ego, pride, yeah, that's one of the reasons.
Some outer forces don't let us be united.
External forces, all correct actually. Okay, let's go through the list, which is based on reading articles and listening to the scholars and personal study of the Qur'an and the Hadith and looking around and analyzing. You're very close, but the primary reason is our moral and religious or faith-based weakness. Our moral character has some deficiency and our faith has some deficiency. That is one of the top reasons. The second reason where all the egoism and the pride come, it is ignorance, which we call as jahiliyyah. And it is failure to understand that unity is an obligatory hukm, a command from Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is unfortunately because of the poor level of education and already our ummah in many parts of Africa, Southeast Asia, we are divided into groups, this, that, and another. So because of that ignorance, we already have crisis of knowledge and wisdom. And in Qur'an, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned 4 types of ignorance. One is what you were talking of, pride and egoism. It is known as hamiyat al-jahiliyyah. That people are chauvinistic, it's me, you have dishonored me, you have disrespected me, and that sort of thing. That's based on ego and pride. But Allah also mentioned another kind of jahiliyyah, which is tabarruj al-jahiliyyah, which points to the fahisha, the immorality, indecency, and sexual immorality is included in that. And the third type of ignorance of jahiliyyah Quran mentions is dhann al-jahiliyyah, where people just form this own ideas and thoughts and speculate and conjecturize things which are not true. All what they say is, my heart feels like that. Mera dil ye kehta hai, without any evidence. So that is, Allah has called dhann al-jahiliyyah, that we just have an opinion about Allah, opinion about the Prophet, opinion about Islam, opinion about something else, without any proof. And the last one is the most dangerous one, which is hukm al-jahiliyyah, that people have their own rules and sharia and own laws, and they leave Allah's laws down somewhere there, and they bring their own ideas and thought and make the law. That is the most dangerous form. Sectarianism actually is part of ignorance, because the sects, they believe, our sect is the best one, and everybody else is a kafir or a very bad sort of Muslim, and every sect has the same problem. So may Allah protect us from that. So in personal factors, which are also part of ignorance and behavior and attitude, we have 3 major problems in Muslims. Really, 3 major problems. One is that we have become very hypercritical people. We criticize everything and all the time, in all the meetings, and from beginning to end. And that has become like an obsessive disorder, almost like a psychological and spiritual illness. And the second problem we have as a Muslim, that we become reactionary people. Radd amal and radd fi'l, as they say in Arabic and Urdu, that whatever happens, we react to those things, not realizing we need to sit back and relax and try to understand. And the third major defect which is stopping us from uniting is that Muslims in Muslim countries, they are seduced by the external forces and the secret agencies and many other people. They're picking up the weapons against each other, not knowing with whom to fight and who's enemy and who's friend. So all the things which you mentioned, that they are sort of the obstructions to unite, were all true, but they come under different headings. In modern time, so the fourth factor is educational factors. We don't have a good education system in our country, neither in madrasa nor in other, because it is all based on the philosophies of the others. Unfortunately, there's nothing wrong with it. You can read their physics and chemistry and biology and science, and everything is fine. But I think we have forgotten that a foundation of our school should be based on what? FMK. That's not happening. Faith, moral character, and our own Islamic knowledge. The fifth reason why we are not uniting is leaders which have no vision. The leaders are the ones who take you forward. They are the pilots. They are the drivers. And our institutes are certainly corrupted and failing, but again it reflects back on the leaders. In the leadership issue, we also have the media, which is actually destroying your own country. Because you remember, I don't have any proof, don't ask me, but many of the media, which are the most powerful, they are actually funded by somebody. Some rich, some elite, some political party, some other secret, so they have their own agendas. So same happens if you look at your own country, Pakistan, where most people come from. So the media is generating this dissent against the leaders. And I'm going to ask you something now, I hope you don't mind. Where does the leaders come from? Whom we criticize, whom we curse, whom we abuse, whom we all want to slap. We all want to throw them out from the office within first 6 weeks of their empowerment. Where do they come from? My brothers and sisters, if there are any, they come from your homes, my homes. They are from us. Why don't we look in the mirror? I think this is very important that we don't unnecessarily curse our leaders. Our good scholars used to say, if anybody's got a dua mustajab means the dua which is accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are some people, I won't be surprised if one of you is sitting there, that you make a dua and it is accepted. If anybody has a dua mustajab and our scholars guide and say, no, you use that dua to pray for your leaders. They are from you. Look in the mirror. We don't have a system to produce good leaders. And the last reason is the socio-economic factors, because the poverty is important. And I think people are poor and homeless and unemployed. How can you unite them? Only on faith and brotherhood. They will not be interested. They are fighting for them. So we have major problems. And the last thing which your brother said is actually the problem of colonization, external forces coming, and they appoint the puppet leaders, they create some malicious disorder, and now I think the forces are there to suppress the truth. And all these are the factors which are obstructing factors. But looking at the positive side, how can we unite? Already I've mentioned the two most important things, the brotherhood and our faith is sufficient. So the important factors or the facilitating factor which can unite us, the first one is we call ideological factors. This brotherhood is ideological, based on religion, based on Qur'an. Our faith is based on an ideology, is a belief system. Unless until we have this ideological factor of faith and brotherhood and belief in the hereafter, we cannot even start thinking or believing that we will ever unite. So what does it prove? It proves only one thing, which throws responsibility back on me and you or anybody else listens, that when Allah and Allah's book are concluding that the faith and the brotherhood are the most important two essential ingredients. So what does it mean? It is putting a pressure on you and me and anybody who listens. First we need to fix ourselves. This is what it means. So in Allah, la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Allah has already mentioned in the Qur'an, Surah Al-Ra'd, verse number 11, that Allah will not change the condition of people, good or bad, unless until they want to change themselves. The first thing is we change ourselves. So these ideological factors under this heading, we also have ideally, if there is what is called as a reconciliation of the sects. Even if they want to remain in the group mentality or sectarianism, but at least stop fighting with each other. So this is known as reconciliation. Even when, I'll tell you an interesting story, when Pakistan was founded in 14th August 1947, and soon after the great leader, Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and he sort of said we need to do certain things. And one of his 4-point agenda was this Islamic State is reconcile the sectarian problem, reconcile the culture and the religion, separate the culture and separate the religion. And then famous scholar who was Jew, Muhammad Asad, who written a beautiful Qur'an, and is a small explanation, and some of you must have heard, and he was a Jew and he became Muslim. He was traveling at that time and he went to Pakistan and he asked, can I offer my services to this new baby country who just created own Islam? And he's there and the people welcomed him. Even I heard that the Qaid-e-Azam also met him, and he said, how can you help us? He put two conditions, Muhammad Asad. He said, I want to stipulate two conditions. If they are not fulfilled, I'm not staying here. Otherwise, I can sort out the whole Islamic system here. He said, just give me two reassurances and authority. One is allow me to change the madrasa system. When they come out of the madrasa, they are able to communicate with other people and not look like aliens. Because we have to have broad-based education, and all people, whether they are secular scholars or religious scholars, we should be able to sit together at the same table and not look very different. That's not Islam. He said, one is allow me to change the madrasa system, and secondly, he said, I am advising you to disempower all those people in power and elite in this country who have been given the money and the land by the British, the previous masters. And these two things never happened, so we are still there. So that is the reason. So we have, as I said, internal racism. We need to remove that, and purification of our moral character and other purification I mentioned. So another factor which can actually unite the Muslims is the same thing I mentioned, change in our education system. Socioeconomic factors and political factors may not be important 1,000 years ago, but these days they are equally important. In order to unite the ummah or the people, you cannot only say, fine, just follow me based on your faith, which is true, on brotherhood, and the people who are ruling, they also have to make some systems where the taxation is fair, zakat is collected and distributed, and there's a meritocracy, and these socio-economic and political factors are extremely, extremely important. In personal factors, I mentioned the three self-destructive things for the ummah is our reactionary nature, which is part of our attitude, not a good attitude, and our hypercritical nature. If these two things can be, we can abandon them, we can sacrifice them, so we have a great chance to unite. Then on a strategic level, of course we should have a truthful counter-narrative, which I mentioned last time, and the countries and leaders should make anti-genocide strategies, because there are risks of massacres and genocides and terrorization of the Muslim all over the world, whether it's a state-sanctioned or some other. And the last thing in this particular one is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Qur'an has always mentioned that you will hear much harm for other people. You will hear much harm. وَلَا تَسْمَعُنَّ مِنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ مِنَ الَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا أَذًى كَثِيرًا. You will hear much harm for the people of the book, and also those people who have chosen to worship other than Allah, like mushrikeen, and in tasbiru wa tattaqu. Allah said the two things are extremely important, that we need to imbibe and analyze that message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you need to be patient and be God conscious. And the last thing is, I don't want to call that terminology, but let me call that, we need to have our own think tanks. Look, we don't need to call think tanks. What the Europeans of Renaissance time, what they've done is a wonderful thing. It's not even a criticism, it's just an observation that whatever, because they are in the power for the last 200, 300 years now, and in terms of knowledge and Renaissance, they pick up all things from the past, which were already established, whether they were in chemistry, in biology, in medicine, in astrology, in astronomy, and everywhere. So what they do is they rename it and repackage it. So when the youngsters, including our young people, when they grow up and read history, and they believe that only they have invented everything, nothing came from the past. So this Muslim think tank is a new terminology. It's not an old terminology, but every king and a queen, even 30,000 years ago, they used to have their own councils, their own advisory councils. So we should have our own advisory council. What do these think tanks do? What do they do? Any idea? What are the main role? They're all over the world now, 7,500 think tanks.
Analysis.
One is analysis. And 50% of those think tanks, 7,500, they are in America and Israel alone, and the rest of the world has another 50% of them. The think tanks, what they do is research. That's one, which is analysis. And the second is they do advocacy. If they feel some group is marginalized and they need some support and help, and they help them. But they also do monitoring of the world and the militaries of the other countries and their own country. This is the role of the think tanks. But think tanks can have other roles also. And the research you do, and Muslims need these think tanks, and especially they need a think tank which contains a social scientist, like anthropologists, like psychologists and psychiatrists, and all these people, so they can learn the human behavior and present a report. All what is happening with the Muslim ummah these days, and people are labeled into, these fundamentalists and these traditionalists and these modernists and these secularists. This is the four groups they made. Rand Corporation of America is another think tank formed in 1943. And it is based on their recommendation. They said, kill all the fundamentalists. Anybody who wants the Sharia law, or this is the best religion, and this is open, available, the document is available. So we should have our own think tanks, Muslims. Yes, India has think tanks, Saudi Arabia have think tanks, Pakistan have think tanks, Turkey have think tanks, but none of the think tanks are at such a global level where they can influence their power. That is the problem. Now, the last two parts now. What is the approach to Muslim unity? There must be some methodology. It's not that I am saying and it looks like a slogan, like most people have been saying things and public is saying it just looks like an emotional speech, you are copy pasting from Qur'an and Hadith, and it's just, we are not uniting. In order to unite, when I did find out what is the methodology, and the methodology came, it should be at three levels. One is at the government and the level of the leadership level. So if we want to unite, so the government and the leaders of the Muslim world, they have to meet. They have to initiate. They have to roll out some kind of a plan or a protocol or a process that this is how we unite. And if they don't do that, Allah's help will not come. Allah says in one of the verses in Quran, Surah Al Imran, إِن يَنْصُرَكُمُ اللَّهُ فَلَا غَالِبَ لَكُمْ وَإِن يَخْذُلْكُمْ فَمَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يَنْصُرَكُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Just a small sort of diversion, and what Allah is saying is, if Allah helps you, none can overcome you. And if Allah forsakes you, that means leaves you for the time being, then who is there after Him that can help you? And Allah alone, you should put your trust in. All the believers, put your trust in Allah. So the second level, so the think tanks coming to that, they should be ideological think tanks. The first, they should be based on the foundations of the Islamic law, that the five pillars, which I mentioned many times, that they should do research on these five areas. Hifzul Nas, how we can protect our people. We lost it. Hifzul Aql, how can we protect our knowledge? And then Hifzul Nasl, how can we protect our families? And then Hifzul Mal, how we can protect our wealth of our country, because our wealth of the Muslim country is being looted now. And the fifth one, which should have been the first one actually, that is Hifzul Deen, how we protect our religion and deen and the monotheist faith. So these think tanks should study the human behavior. They should be monitoring global events. They should be include the research, and then I think we should move forward. The second level of Muslim solidarity is that it should be at institute level. our institute needs to be very, very strong. And if we don't have strong institutions, and by that I include the government institutes and our religious institutes, they should really sit together. I tell you, it will be most wonderful thing if the religious scholars and the secular scholars are sitting on the same table, and religious scholars say, here is the agenda of my agenda, or this is the ahkamat of the Qur'an, the Sharia, we can't change that. Fine. And they're saying, look, give us some leeway, give us some support. We want to build the bridges, we want to build the building, we want to create the jobs, we want to improve our scientific knowledge and research. Fighting. I'm not joking. This is what's happening in Muslim world. People are fighting with each other. And the third methodology, the level and how this can happen is at public and individual level. So I'm coming after you now, and myself also. In public, and if we really want to unite, first thing we need to do is everybody needs to go home, and if they have children and family, so we need to fortify our families. What does it mean? It means that we need to unite within the family first. Because we have a conflict. Parents are from Pakistan or India or Bangladesh or Sri Lanka or from Middle East, and children are born and brought up here, and we are apart. We can't sit together, and we still have a lot of differences. We fail to understand each other. So the first step is, if we really want to unite and fulfill that dream of having a Muslim solidarity where we can feel good about that, is first you show that you can unite at home. And this I call as in the difficult times of Islamophobia and future problems of legislation and future if the hate speakers don't stop and they continue to be empowered, so there will be more problems for Muslims. So either way, this is extremely important that we fortify our homes. If it is not for the ummah unity, it will benefit you for the future and the bad times. And cultural harmony is more important, and every Muslim should feel, they should be humble, but they should feel proud to be Muslim. They should be proud to be slaves of Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala. They should be proud to be a follower of the most beloved human being, most honorable, more respectful, most ever mentioned human being in the history. Nobody can match him. And that's Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Who else could be? Nobody can even come close to that. We have to abandon our prejudice and bigotry. And we have to abandon the same three habits I mentioned: hypercriticism and reactionary attitude, and taking law in our own hands. So building community relationships are important for us, and ascertaining what is happening. So we've done the objectives of which are brotherhood and faith and self-preservation and purification of ourselves, and we are following the hukum of Allah. We said there are obstructing factors, which we mentioned. There were personal reasons, there were ignorance, the lack of knowledge, sectarianism, and so on and so forth. We said there are facilitating factors. We have to start at a government and leadership level, then at institute level, then at individual and family level, and then we can think of uniting, and then inshallah Allah will help. So all this done, now I'm just summarizing now. In summary, I would say we should become human beings who should ask questions, legitimate questions. We should stop asking questions for others, why they are doing this A, B, and C, and X, Y, Z, which is not inappropriate, but for the time being, stop asking those questions and start asking questions about your own self. Why? we are still suffering, why we still have problems, why our moral character is still deficient and weak, why our faith is not up to the standard, because Allah will only help once we improve in this area. Second point in summary is that racism is satanic and is impermissible in whatever shape and form it comes. Who was the first racist in the history of the universe? Shaitan. How did he manifest his racism? Yeah, I'm better than you. He said this, and he also had this feeling of otherization. You know, he was also, at that time, he was Adamophobic. He was Islamophobic at that time. This is the man, Adam, Allah has created, alayhi salam, and he immediately got sort of, worried about that. Whether it was his self-preservation, or whether it was his stubbornness and pride and, arrogance and jealousy, probably all of them. And he was the first one. He started to pass sarcastic remarks towards that, you see, that human being Allah created. So he was, in fact, the first racist creature. And he said, and the racism is based on two major things. The only two major things. All other are minor. Shall I tell you those two things? If you look up the books of the history, the two major things of racism, all over the world, all in history. Other causes are minor causes. One is based on religion, and based on race, your tribe. You look at the history of racism all over the world for the previous even 5,000 years. It is based on either religion, and my religion or my sect is better, or it's based on the race, and I am a better race, I am a taller race. Ad or Samud was given the example. They were racist people of that time. And I don't want to give any example than the massacre genocides of 18th, 19th and 20th century in non-Muslim world, not in our world, committed by the non-Muslims. You already know the history. So racism is satanic and it's impermissible. And if we want to unite and show solidarity and never dream of having a Muslim ummah uniting and our hearts, Allah fabayna qulubikum, we have to get rid of our own inner prejudices. And Muslim think tanks I've already mentioned. So we have to, if we want to show solidarity, we have to give some sacrifices. The first sacrifice is, I've already mentioned, it is prejudice, bigotry, and racism, all are the same thing. The second sacrifice we want to do is, we are excessive in our lifestyle and excessive in our spending. We have forgotten that moderation, and we've forgotten that in al-mubazzirina kanu ikhwana shayateen, and we've forgotten that wala tusrifu, do not exceed. So we do waste time, we do waste money, we do waste effort, do waste our time in giving to those people or companies who should not be given, because that is foolish. So we have to do a second sacrifice, that not to be excessive and not to be extravagant. The third sacrifice we have to give is that we need to really contribute our money towards the good causes, even if it caused you some hardship. The fourth sacrifice we have to give up, that we have to give up our spiritual form of trust in other human beings and change that back to Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is Allah who will change our hearts, who will do Allah fabayna qulubikum. He will put and insert this mahabbah, this love, but we have to do our foundational homework. If we don't do these sacrifices, it is not possible. I don't see, because it has been 300 years now. We are split and divided. And the fifth sacrifice is, we have to force ourselves to seek knowledge, which alhamdulillah, out of probably, a few thousand people who could have been here. Only few people, are here. So may Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala enable you to understand, enable you to learn, enable you to change, enable you to pass on this to other people if you believe this is true. And to finish off, I will advise myself and all people and all young people, if they ever listen or if there is a YouTube video, we should learn to call ourselves Muslims. If we call ourselves other than Muslims, you will not be respected. You are showing signs of cracks in the wall. You're showing the signs of weakness. You are showing the signs of your internal understanding and problem and ignorance. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Qur'an has only called you and all His servants Muslims, nothing else. وَقَالُوا إِنَّنَا مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. There's no other name given to us. There's no name given to us. Because when people, if you look at many of the news and the history books and the writings of the non-Muslim scholars, and they always sort of, bring this up. Which Muslim you are? Which Muslim you are? Are you a Barelvi? Are you Deobandi? Are you Salafi or Ahle Hadith? Or are you Sunni or a Shia? What are you? I tell you, if we can only change one thing, and so we say it's none of your business, we are united on one Allah, one book, one prophet, and we believe in the hereafter, we are united, we are Muslims. Even the loudspeaker got excited. And it's not a bad sign, you see. And he agrees with me. We should call ourselves Muslim. So by now you know the Muslim solidarity and ittihad is not a simple process. It is a complex process. It involves strategy and planning and our sacrifices, and at government level, institute level, and individual level. So I finish off with this dua that may Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala strengthen Muslim Ummah, unite their hearts so that we can defend ourselves, preserve our faith, dignity and sanity, and know that our enemy Shaitan was not able to break the spirit of Yaqub alayhi salam, the spirit of Yunus alayhi salam, the spirit of Ayub alayhi salam, or Musa alayhi salam, or Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam. They were all patient. Allah said in Qur'an, in all difficult time, in tasbiru wa tattaqu la yadurrukum kaiduhum shay'a ya'maluna muhit. This is the verse number 120 of Surah Al Imran. That if other people harm you, hurt you, plan against you, conspire against you, and if you are in trouble, they laugh, and if you are happy, they feel jealous or bad. In tasbiru wa tattaqu, if you're truly patient and remember Allah, be conscious of Allah, la yadurrukum kaiduhum shay'a, believe in that, and their conspiracy will not harm you. It will not harm you. So in Allah bima ya'maluna muhit, in reality, Allah is encircling them and His power and grip is for them. وَأُمْلِ لَهُمْ إِنَّ كَيْدِي مَتِينٌ. But they have a little leeway until they die. All the enemies of mankind, whether within our own selves or from outside other people. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. So this was just a